In they come to spend their final hours at Auckland meat processors, beef cattle from the upper North Island. And into the premises we go, under the most stringent sanitary regulations. No watches or jewellery, gumboots that must be scrubbed hard on the way in and the way out. Food Safety Authority vet Dr. Fasi Ahmed is the first to see these cattle at the abattoir.
At the general body condition and also for any signs of disease or injury to the animals. So we move them around the pens to see them in movement, in motion, and obviously, as you see, they're all prime stock. And the other important criteria is we look at the animal status declarations which accompany the animals.
What do they say?
They give you the history of the animal, if there have been any treatments, animal remedies used, the withholding periods, whether they are under any withholding periods, or the feeding and their disease state, vaccination status, plus the hormonal growth promotants if they have been used on these animals. So if they have used, then we separate them, and they are considered as they're not eligible to some markets like the EU.
The cattle get a very thorough shower, particularly to avoid the risk of fecal contamination once the animals are on the chain. Once processing workers start reducing animals to their component parts, Assure quality inspectors take over the vital role of ensuring food safety standards are kept at New Zealand's gold standard.
What is this guy looking for in the lungs, for instance?
The whole process is to look for defects. Any unwholesomeness or disease is viewed and inspected to remove defects from the finished product.
So what sort of defects would they be looking for?
Pleurisy, for instance, in the liver we have facial eczema, cirrhosis, melanosis, liver fluke. There's a variety of diseases and parasites that affect the liver. The heart's affected by pericarditis, the lungs have lungworms. We also look for contamination.
Now, how are you going to trace the particular piece of offal back to a particular piece?
They're all numbered. The number is on the tray over there, and that. Yes, and all positively identified.
Right. So, if this guy found something in these lungs, for instance, what would happen? Does the chain stop? Of it or what?
If there's anything serious wrong with it, that he needs to make a further inspection, what we normally do is retain all the product from that animal, and we puts it onto a retain rail, and a final decision's made.
It's not just the offal which comes under the practised eyes of inspectors. The carcasses too get some close scrutiny.
There's 3 inspectors here. At this speed we need 3 inspectors to do the carcass inspection, and they're looking for defects such as arthritis, pleurisy and actino. There's a variety of these diseases and defects. They're looking for contamination, they're looking for bruising.
Well, that was meat. Now we're at the fish processing facility for Sanford's on the Auckland waterfront, where the rules and regulations are no less stringent. So we've got to put on our plastic coats and little booties for our shoes. Of course, having put the booties on, we have to wear the hairnet as well. So let's go down and see just how they make our fish safe for export. These fish are straight off the boats, where they've been sorted in 2 species. Under the skilled eye of Puha Loto-Ohia, they get their first inspection under the strict food safety rules laid down by the authority for our fish processors. Inspectors are employed in-house, with the NZFSA making periodic visits to check everything is up to standard.
This is the sea perch that Puha's looking at, and what he's doing is he's monitoring the temperature of the fish. We've got chilled storage at the moment, and what we're looking at trying to do is ensure that the quality of the fish is maintained, and that the temperature of the fish doesn't rise above a certain level.
So this part of the process, it's primarily temperature control.
Temperature control.
So how important is temperature control in the whole process, Tim?
Very important to ensuring that the freshness and the quality of the fish is maintained. Also ensuring that no bacteria grow during this period and that we're processing it in an appropriate time frame. We're also looking to ensure that the fish is fresh and suitable for processing.
So I see he's examining the gills there. What's that for?
Absolutely. He's making sure that the fish is fresh, okay? He's making sure that there's no deterioration of the fish over time and it smells okay.
After their initial inspection, the fish are bound for the filleting and packing room, where they continue to come under the eagle eye of food safety inspectors.
This guy behind us here, he's an inspector too. What's he checking these fish for?
He's mainly checking the fish for food quality, so quality parameters such as scale damage, ensuring that the whole fish is intact and that it's suitable for packing off against our company specifications.
And bruising, I guess?
Absolutely, yeah, looking for any damage to the external surface of the fish.
What proportion of your fish would be rejected at this stage because of some sort of damage? 1 in 20, 1 in 100?
It's all about how well the fish has been handled throughout the whole chain. So we're looking at from the fish on board the vessel, from the catching to how well it's handled on board the vessel, to how well it's handled at fish reception, storage, and then onto the processing line.
Of course, a lot of fishermen are pretty rough and ready individuals, and over the years they haven't taken that much care when you see footage of fish being landed. But are they more aware these days of how they have to be a bit more gentle in the way they handle their catches?
Absolutely. The fish is handled really well by the fishermen. They take a lot of care and pride in what they're presenting to us. They are aware that this is what the consumer sees and that someone is going to eat the product that they're producing.
Food safety standards are not only vital for our fish processors, they are for Fonterra too. A recall of any of our food exports would cause havoc, with costs to the whole economy of billions of dollars. But Fonterra, with its sheer size, would suffer the most. In their large laboratory at Te Rapa in the Waikato, Fonterra's scientists and technicians are testing milk powder for contamination, mostly bacterial, the day we call. The man in charge of the co-op's food safety standards, Mark Leslie, explains the exacting processes from farm to customer in ensuring our dairy products are 100% pure.
As tankers are on farm collecting milk, they're taking a sample of every supplier's milk. They'll come back to the factory here and unload, and at that point, while they're unloading, they'll be doing two things. One, they'll be doing a test for antibiotics and making sure there's no contamination of the milk with antibiotics. So they'll do that test prior to unloading. At the same time, those samples that have come in off farm are then delivered to the SATOR laboratories, and so those samples from raw milk off farm are tested. So by that point, the milk's now at our sites. Then as it's going through the manufacturing process, we're also doing tests as part of its run to make sure it's in its specification as it's going through. And then we get to, as we've just seen in here, the last step in the process where we're doing tests for final product quality. And that's basically that critical decision point. Are we confident, or do we have a low confidence that that product meets all the specifications and we can release it for customers further down the supply chain?
Once we're inside the lab, we see how the huge numbers of samples present a major challenge. There are 4 million tests a year carried out in Fonterra's labs around the country. Lab workers must keep track of thousands of different batches every day as milk powder solution is put on an agar medium in petri dishes and then into incubators to see if any bugs hatch.
The traceability right through the process, being able to trace product right through from farm to customer is critical, and an element of that is being able to trace the samples and ensuring you've got them linked back to the appropriate product. So, yeah, traceability a key part of the process.
There seems to be an incredible emphasis on on very clean sanitary conditions here. You're obviously trying to keep any extraneous bugs out of the process.
Yeah, so right way through the process, and a key aspect of the lab process is that we're trying to test if there's bacteria that's contaminated the product.
Yeah.
We're wanting to make sure that the testing environment is critically clean so that we're not introducing basically a false result into the system.
With the huge milk powder drying towers nearby at Te Rapa churning out 22 tonnes an hour, these lab workers will never be out of work in ensuring one of our most vital exports is 100% clean and safe.